What's up, everybody? Sam Smice here. Today, I want to show you to make the synth from My Eyes by Travis Scott. Travis Scott made this song in collaboration with Justin Vernon, who is also known as Bon Iver. And this synth melody originally comes from a song called Over There by the Japanese House, which was also co-produced by Justin Vernon or Bon Iver. So I wanted to see how close I could get to recreating this sound just using Serum. It was probably originally made using like a Rhodes keyboard or Rhodes piano, but I would just want to see what I could do using Serum if I could get close to recreating the sound. The first part that was hard was trying to figure out the MIDI or get something close to what he's playing. I'm not a piano player. I play guitar, so this was a bit hard for me to figure out how to get this MIDI to sound right. So what I ended up doing is I used Melodyne to figure out the MIDI. What you can do is you can go into Melodyne, transfer the track into Melodyne, and then you go to the algorithm that is like polyphonic sustain or polyphonic decay. I usually use this polyphonic sustain, and then it will try to decipher all of the different notes that is happening in the audio. So you can see there's like a lot of random little hits here, a lot of little random notes scattered throughout. But because the part that I used to analyze in Melodyne was the beginning of the track, there was just like the keyboard or the piano playing and then a bit of a drum machine playing. I was able to kind of pull from this Melodyne the notes that are in the that he's playing in the keyboard. So what I did is I went to settings, save as MIDI, and then that created a MIDI file that looked like this. So you can see how messy this is. It's like messy MIDI file. So this down here, I figured was probably just like the stuff that the drum machine was creating. So I was able to decipher the chords just using that and kind of pull out some of the notes. So this is what I came up with for the MIDI. You can see I have some different variations on the velocity on some of these notes, and that's very important for this sound because if you listen to that beginning, you can hear some notes jump out really loudly. And so what I had to do is just use a lot of modulation of the velocity in Serum and also just playing around with the velocity of the MIDI. So let me just play you the sound that I was able to create. And I'm also using the RC20 just to give it more of a vibe. So you'll hear a lot of noise on that, like some background noise and a bit more distortion. So let's just play it. Let me show you the MIDI. Let's open up this MIDI. So you can hear I have that note here jumping out really loudly in the track. And then also this one, and then this little part, you can hear it like jump out. So it's pad-like, and then all of a sudden you have these notes jump out. And so that's, that happens like in that beginning intro of the song. And so I want to recreate that. So let's just go ahead and show you how I did that. Let's take off this RC20. I'm going to open up a blank Serum oscillator. I will go to analog basic shapes and do a square wave. I'm going to add some PWM on that. So adjusting this PWM to about 85%. Then I'm going to adjust this velocity here. So I'm going to give it a curve and assign this velocity to the level so that as I hit a note harder on my keyboard and increase that velocity, the note gets louder. So then I'm going to add on the oscillator B, and I felt like the original sound had some width to it. So I'm just going to add on like a saw wave quietly in the background. So I'm lowering this level, going to put this around like 50%. And then I will add on the velocity here as well and adjusting this modulation. And I might adjust this fine tuning also a bit. And then after that, I'm going to add on a bit of noise. So I'm going to go into analog, micro chord noise, and lower this to 5%. That sounds like a very small amount, but once I begin adding on the effects, it'll be brought up a lot louder, this micro chord noise. So now let's go to the envelope 1, and as I play and hold a note, I want the level to slowly decay and get quieter. So what I'll do is increase this decay to 2.8 seconds or so, and lower the sustain to, I don't know, -21. So there I'm holding out a note, it's getting quieter, going to add on some release. And maybe take away some of that curve. After the envelope, gonna head to the LFO1, leaving the mode on off, setting the rate to 1/4. And I want to use this LFO1 to get that like wobbly pitch effect. So going to my matrix, setting the LFO1 to the global master tuning. If I raise this up to 1, you can hear how intense it is, but if I decrease this output to 0, then you don't hear it. So this controls like the amount of that LFO. I'm gonna set it to about 40. And that might still sound intense, but once I add on this filter, then it subdues it a bit. So I'm gonna add on the MGLO24 filter, adding it on for AB, my noise, and also key tracking. I'm gonna turn that on, setting that cutoff around 400 Hertz, resonance 5%, drive at 20%. So now I can hear it's softer, it's nicer. I want this filter to open up as I play those notes harder. So I'm gonna go with this velocity here, assigning it to the cutoff and adjusting that modulation. And let's go to one of those harder notes and listen to how it sounds in the MIDI. So you can hear it opening up for those two notes that I have with the harder velocity. So once I have all that, I'm gonna add on a chorus. Then I'll add on the tube distortion, drive at 40% and the mix at 47%. And I also want there to be some more drive as I hit the notes harder. So what I'll do is go to this velocity, assign the velocity to this drive, let's say like, I don't know, 15%, and get a bit more drive on those notes. Like that. Gonna add on a compressor, and I want those notes, they are a bit louder, but I want them to be even more louder than everything else. So what I found out is that if I take the velocity and assign it to the gain on my compressor, because the compressor is gonna compress the oscillator levels. So even though I have these increasing up, it's gonna still compress it. So this is just gonna compress everything, but as I raise up the velocity, it's gonna increase the gain. So it kind of like makes everything else quieter, but just those notes I hit harder, it's gonna make them louder. So gonna hit this gain at like 20. So now you can hear the difference of those louder notes, how much louder they are than everything else. Then after that, just going to add on a plate reverb, and let's now play this from the beginning. And then I will add on the RC20. So I have quite a bit of noise on this RC20. So you can play around with that noise. I have this distort on, the tube distorts, some cutoff going on, some of this EQ, and then the magnitude is at 80%. So that is how I recreated this sound in Serum. If you would like to grab the preset, I'll put a link down below. And also, if you would like to check out any of my Serum preset packs, head on over to store.samsmyers.com.